made $150,000 this summer in 4 months, which is just crazy. What advice would you give to someone who wants to do that in their early 20s?
My temptation is to start tomorrow, and I would start today. Find something and pursue it and just go after it. Because if you wait for tomorrow, then something else is going to come up and you'll end up putting it off 2 more days and 3 more days. And then you're going to be 5 years later down the road and you haven't started yet.
What's up, you guys? Thanks for tuning in to the Purpose Driven Persuasion podcast, where if you're a highly ambitious person, you're going to learn how to go from being unfocused to unstoppable, and specifically by applying the tactics, strategies, and learning from the results of persuasion and influence demonstrated at a high level. What that means for you is by applying the things we talk about in this podcast of sales skills or persuasion and influence, you can become the most persuasive, influential, and impactful version of yourself and better serve the people around you that you love and care about the most. I'm your host, Hayden Schaap. For the last 10 years, I've obsessively tried to learn, apply, and teach these skills of persuasion and influence at the highest level, and have seen incredible results in my own life and the people that we've worked with, and that's what we're talking about. Give us a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, check us out on all of the audio platforms as well. Make sure you follow for more. If you get some value out of this, I'd really appreciate if you shared it with somebody else as well, because I think a lot of people could benefit. Enjoy the episode, guys. Cole Allen.
Hayden Schaap.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Make sure, okay, so dude, that's gnarly.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Lost a war to a dirt bike.
Yeah.
Won the battle, lost the war.
Something lost.
2 days
It was
in a
either
row.
that arm
That's why I'm
or,
keeping it off
or
the
the
bench.
thing that did that to you.
Don't ask. You should see the other guy.
All right, we're here with Cole Allen today on the podcast. I don't know where this goes or anything, but we're definitely doing this for some reels, and we just want to talk about your summer.
Cool.
And how successful it was. Yeah.
I'm excited. No, it
You're not nervous, are you?
No, just a lot, but other than that, no.
So you always want to have the mic like 3 or 4 inches from your mouth.
How's that look?
That's fine. Yeah,
Cool.
it looks great. How's that sound over there? Good? Okay.
Good.
Yeah, dude, will you start off by just telling me a cool story from your
From
legal trapping days?
From the illegal or
No,
the
the
legal?
legal.
The legal aspect. I mean, that's a shorter list of stories.
Okay, so that's a shorter list. All right, so for some context, Cole was going to sell in Denver this year, ended up coming out to sell in Dallas, and we were car partners for how long? Like a month and a half?
Month and a half.
Yeah, about a month and a half. So
Yeah.
like, you know, like 45 or so selling days.
Something like that.
Every day we would drive out to area together, freaking that trek out to West Dallas.
Crack nowhere.
It was awesome.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, on the way home, you get, it's a long day. Everybody's like tired. So very frequently I would just say, hey, Cole, can you tell me a story? Dude?
Entertain me, please.
Yeah, entertainment, please. And we kind of switch off back and forth with that.
Man, I'm trying to think. You want like something intense? Do you want something that's just going to give a little bit of background to who I am? Maybe a little bit of both.
Dude, I'm sure that
little bit of
anything you say will
both.
give background. So
Crap.
why don't you just send it, dude? Just
Put me on the spot.
yeah.
We could talk about the time I fell through a river on a 4-wheeler in the middle of winter. I told you that one, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Tell me again, though.
So long story short, I did this, I guess a little bit of background. I did this like trapping thing, and I got paid just to like watch some horses, watch a couple cabins, and then like just trap some stuff for the winter.
So
like
by some stuff, you mean like
wolves
and-
Wolverines, stuff like that. So like this is like a hunting camp, and they make a lot of money on like bigger animals like moose and sheep. And basically I got paid to catch what eats those so that they could make more money. Kind of a cool little cycle there. But I was supposed
just
to
like hands-on experience with the food chain.
more or less. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I was at the bottom. That's the only problem. I was
You
at the
were at
bottom
the
of the
bottom?
food chain. Yeah.
Okay.
But I was supposed to be there with this like winter caretaker for 2 weeks to show me the property when I first got there, and he was
Okay.
gonna like idiot proof it for me basically.
Okay.
Get there and he's like, hey, I got a dip in like 3 days. So he gives me like a really
How long are you supposed to be there? 2 weeks?
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Okay.
So he gives me like a really brief run through, and I was like 17 at the time. So I was just fresh off the boat, and I'm like, oh, well, sweet. And then I found out a lot of other things. I didn't have like running water. I didn't have
And it's like
bathroom.
freezing too, right?
Yeah, it was pretty cold. It was like -35. Was
This
like
is where in Montana?
In Alaska.
In Alaska.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
I mean Alaska, Montana. You know,
same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah, just different area. But anyway, we had to cross a river at one point to go check like a lot of traps, and there's like multiple different places that you'd go check. But we went across together, and when we came back, that water had risen a lot, and it will have like shelf ice to where it will freeze and then rise and freeze and rise.
Yeah.
And I asked him when I came back, I'm like, hey, do you know if I'll be safe if I come back and try this again in a week? And he's like, yeah, you'll be fine. Just go fast. And I'm like, okay, that sounds good. Could have fooled me. So I went back in like a week, and yeah, I don't know if you've ever done something to where like just before you did it, you know you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, so like we used to do a version of this with snowmobiles where you'd go across the lake, like unfrozen lake with a snowmobile and see how far you could get across.
Yeah.
It's very,
very similar.
Dangerous.
Dumb.
The stupid thing to do unless you're like really experienced.
So take that and then put me on it basically. So I got there and I'm like, shouldn't do this. And then I had that thought come into my head like, oh, Jeff says you'll be fine. Just go fast. So I just try and hammer on it, and I get like halfway across this river and just like immediately I'm underwater. And I have water up to my chest, and I'm like floating on the wheels to where like half of the machine is above the water line. Yeah. But it's a river, so there's like water flowing under the ice. And I'm like, this is it. This is the last day the Cole lives. And long story short, I said a prayer as soon as I went in the water, and I still don't know how, but I was able to get out of the water. I was able to drag the four-wheeler out of the water. I walked across the river and walked 5 miles home with a chainsaw on my back, soaked to the bone, like 10 degrees. And it was the longest day of my entire life.
Oh my gosh, dude.
But
was there ever a point where you were like, all right, like legit, I think I'm going to freeze to death? Or like,
oh, right when I went in the water. Yeah. Right when I went in the water. It like, if I didn't say a prayer, if I didn't have like inspiration, I literally was like, by the time I made it home, I was so cold that I like couldn't really think to function.
Did you get any like frostbite or anything?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Very, very, very
awesome
frostbite. Like fingers, toes, and then I got it like in my face. So like my cheeks, my ears,
like pretty
and
classic,
my nose.
right? When you get frostbite, it's pretty much extremities in your nose or face.
It sucks all the blood out of everything that's not vital. And yeah. You just,
dude, that's wild.
It's a good time. But
so
I'll go ahead.
I was gonna say this. One of the sales reps came over to my house and did an ice bath in the cold plunge the other day.
Oh yeah.
And so like people would just go in and out and they like take ice baths and then leave. Like I was leaving in town, was on his way in to do one. And he was there with my brother. He had never taken an actual ice bath before. And that tub is freaking cold, dude. It's like 38 degrees, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you tried it once or twice.
Yeah.
So he gets in and he's like trying to be tough, and he's in there for like 15 minutes. I'm like, dude. So Sarah's like
15 minutes?
15 minutes, 38 degrees. Like this is
wow.
Yeah, it's like too cold, right? So Sarah was telling me the story, and I'm like, that's like hypothermia is like the next step after like a few minutes later.
Yeah.
In that cold of water, right?
Yeah.
And but he's just trying to be tough, and then like everything went numb, and he just like gets out. It's like, just like
wow.
Sure, like I hyperventilating. I'm like, dude, that's dangerous. Like, don't stay in that long.
That's a man, though. I mean, I can't do it like 3 or 4 minutes. So good for him.
Yeah, but he just had never taken like a cold ice bath before, so he's thinking like, oh, like what's the big deal?
It's not,
like
not
20
that
minutes?
hard.
Is that how long you go?
Holy crap!
Anyway, so
crazy.
Don't do that.
Noted. I will check that off the box. Don't do that.
Well, I cut you off. What were you gonna say? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
I don't either.
It wasn't anything important, obviously. So it's gone,
dude. Every day. So some of just the funnest memories from this summer, are like just stopping in that Walmart, eating an entire box of
blueberries
and blackberries, and then on the way home getting stopping at QT and getting those freaking
protein
supposedly healthy protein peanut butter cups and those Pop-Tarts.
Oh yeah,
so good.
Yeah, don't tell me with a good time. That was fantastic.
So can you talk to me a little bit about just kind of your journey with like your first summer? How much did you sell, and then this summer, how did you do comparatively to that first summer?
Yeah, first summer was 2020, right? In Dallas. So I sold 190 accounts, and I sold the bulk of my 190 in my first month. I just kind of came out on a high, and then I struggled just like...
Yeah, you were crushing it right away.
I did well. Yeah, I was stoked too, because I'm like, well, this is kind of an easy job.
And you're what, like 22, 21? How old were you when you that first summer?
Man, that was what, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
I'm 25 now, so 22. Yeah, 22 years old.
It's crushing.
And I had no sales experience before. It was one of those things that I worked really hard to get my words down and just to be like ready for summer from what the checklist said.
Yeah.
And then I got kicked in the teeth, and then I loved it and it was fun, but I sold 190 accounts. It was probably 4 months summer. I think it was April to August. Yeah. And then this summer I sold 405 or 402 of general pest control.
It was like service 410 total. Just as looking at it's like it's inaccurate when you look at the
good to know
stuff.
Okay.
But like 410 total, and with a really good contract value as well.
I think it was 635-ish, something like that.
Yeah. So made, what did you make? 160K
100 and something. Yeah.
About there.
100 and a half. Yeah. Ballpark it. But
when that's just off of your own sales, like you weren't managing.
Yes. Yeah. Like, personal production. That's it.
It's pretty sweet.
Get up in the morning, go get yelled at, and come home and do it over again. No, not by you. Not by you. Let's clarify.
Although maybe at first.
We'll just bypass that part.
But that was, it was the just most enjoyable part of my summer for sure.
Same.
And
same.
But I'm curious as like what made the difference for you, from like how do you go from doing 191 accounts to just crushing it, doing over 400 accounts? If you were to tell somebody like this is the way to do it, like what do you say?
I think like looking back to my previous summer, I knew that I had more to give. I knew that I had more potential.
Okay.
But it was very, very easy to be comfortable like pulling back at a certain point. Like my first month, I think I sold like 90 accounts.
Yeah.
And then I sold 100 accounts over the next 3 months. Right. So I had some work ethic issues. I had some things that I needed to address. But I mean, looking back, like in the moment, I was still like fine with that, because I'd like made a lot of money compared to what I'd made previously. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Like,
yeah,
I didn't give it my all, but I did well, quote unquote. And like, whatever. This summer, I think I was just disgusted with tolerating a lower performance. And I just got to a point where it was more comfortable for me to do the work to pursue what I wanted than to sit in the sorrow of thinking about where I was at before and not wanting to repeat that.
And so was like the not wanting to have, okay, so follow my thought process here, because this is really interesting from like a mindset standpoint and goal setting. Is like we're always motivated. In order to go do something really big, you have to have a really clear vision of what that means, like the positive outcomes.
Yeah.
But according to the research on what drives people in the midst of performance, it's actually like the negative consequences of not achieving your goals. So a vision of the future, dialing in on what you want and the positive things that means is really helpful while you're creating the goals themselves. But when the time for performance comes, it's actually way more helpful to envision like what will happen logistically if I don't hit my goal.
Super interesting.
So can you talk to me a little bit about like, does that fit into maybe your
process? That rings a bell hard.
Would that motivate you on a day-to-day basis of just like not wanting to have the negative outcomes of not achieving your goal?
100%. Not even for the loss of finances. Like that part I didn't even really care about.
Right.
I knew that I was going to make good money regardless, but I was not willing to drive home at the end of a summer again to make a 25-hour drive and think about not giving it what I committed to do.
Would you think about that a lot? Like that
all the time. Home? I hate that. Like that is like the most poisonous thing ever, because I think about like driving home at the end of that first summer, I knew that I had the opportunity to do a lot more and I settled. And I hate that. Like I'm the type of person that just like keeps me up at night and I don't sleep.
Okay.
So driving home at the end of, or like working through this next summer, I'd have that thought like frequently just during the day too, when I'm on the doors. It's like 100 and who knows, it's like hotter than the surface of the sun in Dallas.
It was hot in Dallas this year.
And I'm like, so many days it's like, man, I could just go get a freaking ice cream cone or something and just go hang out and do whatever I want.
Because what people don't understand too is you were like by yourself the rest of the summer.
Yeah. For what, 4 months, 3.5 months?
Basically, yeah, for three and a half full months of you just like, we're talking about like self-motivation here.
Yeah. You drive an hour one way each day and then you park and just get out and just go have fun. It's kind of a rodeo, to be honest.
And no one's there to say like, hey, you get out of the car, start working.
Step it up. Yeah. You just had to figure it out.
Yep.
But to answer your question, I think about that a lot. I think I had a lot of mindset shifts that like from the beginning of summer towards the end.
Okay.
I was like very drawn to like hitting a goal at the beginning of the summer. And I didn't think as much about the consequences of not hitting that goal. I just started to build some momentum. You helped me actually at the beginning of the summer.
Yeah.
I set a small attainable goal, and the idea was just to get that as soon as possible.
Sprint to this as quickly as possible.
And it happened fast, like way faster than I was expecting it to. And then all of a sudden I had momentum, and I could kind of go back and forth between look at the pro and then look at the con. Like, this is going to be great.
What happens if I hit this versus like what happens if I don't go do the work?
This. Yeah. What does that feeling look like?
When did you actually end up setting the goal of doing 400 accounts? Which, I mean, what would that be in revenue? 255,
I think.
Yeah. When did you end up actually setting, okay, like now that I hit this first like sprint benchmark, okay, I'm going to go after the next thing?
I had a higher goal, to be honest. So my goal was higher. I wanted to sell at least 500 accounts. That was like it wasn't an option for me to sell less than that.
Okay.
Because I set that with such like a sturdy standard that forced me to sell a lot more than I did previously. Towards the end of the summer, I tried to just have like a real talk with myself and say, hey, this is where you're at. This is how much time you have left. And then I was able just to adjust based on that.
Yeah.
I would say like August is when I kind of adjusted to sell to where I'd say I'd sell 400 accounts.
Right.
But I think the beginning of August, I was at 300 accounts. So I still had another month, and I just figured it out, and I was able to put on another 100 accounts, which was cool. But
yeah, and that's I mean, it's impressive because again, you're every day just doing that basically on your own.
Yeah.
So okay, I have a couple questions. And what mindset things shifted for you? I mean, honestly, it really is just as simple as like not wanting to do like go back to where you'd been before, I think. So I'm like maybe beating a dead horse with this, but what did you have other motivations that like on a day-to-day basis would get you to get one more sale or work a little bit harder than like you would have otherwise?
Yes.
Or was it really just that tangible or thing that you had experienced before and not wanting that again?
No, yes and yes, I think.
Okay.
So in the mornings, I had a stack of sticky notes, and I would make like specific goals or commitments for the day.
Okay.
And I was pretty harsh with myself at times, like like the return side. If I don't hit that, this is what's going to happen.
Okay.
And basically, I'm very motivated by like, I keep my commitment no matter what.
Yeah.
So I had lots of sticky notes that said like, just like, don't fail yourself today. Okay. Like if you're going to if you follow, like a man is only as good as his ability to keep his commitment to his word. Interesting. And like that stuff hits me really hard, especially when I have that talk with myself. So I would have little commitments like you are going to go get an energy drink if you sell 3 accounts before like 4 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
And that was something that I had both motivation and like a consequence. Yeah. It's like you're either just going to drag buns through the rest of the night if you don't get 3 and it's just going to be brutal, or you just go get it done and make it happen. You have 3, you go get an energy drink, and then all of a sudden like the rest of the night is just even and steady, because I have a little bit of a caffeine problem. I'm gonna admit it, but don't be it made a big difference.
So what started that? Because like so when we were knocking together, I remember it being kind of a different feeling for you when I was like, hey, because we would, take, if we got to a certain amount of accounts like together, we'd go like take a quick break or whatever. Yeah. But like if I wasn't there, I'd be like, hey man, I'm sorry. Like you can segger over and get my car and go. But like I gotta hit your goal today. Yeah. Did you always do that before, or was that something that shifted as we were knocking together?
Shifted big time with you. Yeah. Never did that actually. And I, looking back, I kind of shot myself in the foot big time. Like in the previous summer, cause I would like forget to drink water. And and like in Dallas, when you forget to drink water, like I can't talk, and I'm just like no cognitive function whatsoever. Yeah. But with you, I just learned how to pace myself to put myself in an opportunity to perform at my best. Yeah. And if that means take a break for 15 minutes once or twice a day, then that means you take a break for 15 minutes once or twice a day.
And it's really about being honest with yourself with what you actually need in the moment, right? Because like, consistency, people underestimate how important consistency plays a role in having. Do you remember this conversation we had in like middle of the summer when you hit 250, and I was like, this is the moment that you either only do 300 or you do 4 or more. Yeah. It's like what you do over these next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because most guys will hit 250 and I'll be like, oh crap, well, this is more than I've ever made before. This is better than I did last year. In fact, it's double of whatever, right? And then they'll be like, I think I'll be fine. And then that right there is the decision to do like $50,000 to $100,000 in revenue less.
Yeah.
But that's like not something I really realized at first. But I learned that through this, like, looking at my stats and saying like, freak, if I can just be consistent in these like weeks that most people just start sucking, that's where you pull ahead and start winning. And then the question is, how do you become consistent? Well, you have to pace yourself, but you also have to set up standards for yourself every day. Like,
yeah,
I'm not going to go take a break unless I have 4 sales under my belt, or 5 or 10. Right. And you just keep upping that and then gradually rewarding yourself over time. But that's something that was like a game changer for me when I started doing that.
That is super interesting.
Yeah. It's like, once you realize the consistency, you're like, crap, okay, consistency is everything.
Yeah.
So now the question is, how do you stay consistent on a day-to-day basis? And that was kind of where I developed that like methodology, I guess.
You know what's funny is I remember having that conversation, but I also remember getting really sick for like over a week right after that.
Yeah.
And every day that I was like not knocking, I was thinking about that. I'm like, dude, these are the 2 weeks that are crucial and I got to go freaking knock. And I'd sit there and I'm like, well, I'm just sick. So what should I do? Should I lay here and try to get feeling better to go out and just get it done? Or what should I do?
And I remember talking about that too, because like some people will think that I'm like a little bit hard nosed on that stuff, but like I want people to take care of themselves. But for me personally, I know that the feeling of sickness is way easier than having to get momentum again.
Yeah.
So, but you also have to just judge like how well you're actually
know
feeling.
yourself.
And I knew how sick you actually were, but that's why like I just knowing yourself, knowing what you actually need is really important. I'm not even sure what I'm trying to say with that, but it's just like those little things you learn about yourself, you know, and how it like getting really honest and saying like, okay, do I actually need a break right now to like feel better? Or am I just really tired of getting a lot of no's and I really need to just buckle down and get like a couple sales.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Am I just letting myself lax because I'm having a hard time, or do I just need to get over it?
Yeah.
I did that cool little thing towards the middle of the end of summer where I just would get over it if I wasn't feeling very good, and it works. And I'm like, oh dang, I just gotta tell myself to
Like,
get over it. And all of a sudden I feel better. And I'm like, dang.
What do you mean?
So like, it's literally that, like that phrase is I would like whine to myself and I'd complain like, man, it's freaking hot, or it's been a long day, or I'm tired. And then I would just realize that I'm going to go on a tangent. So, you know, Lone Survivor movie?
Yes.
Have you seen that?
Oh yeah.
Do you know like that story with like, is it Marcus Luttrell or whatever, where he gets shot and like all of his friends die and he's shot like 15, 17 times. And in the movie, it shows it really well. They like fall off this big cliff.
Yeah.
And he tucks himself underneath this big like rock ledge.
Right.
And he's got people like trying to find him to kill him basically. And he waits it out.
Have you met Rich before? He was in Lone Survivor.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to meet him because I like that movie. But he tells the story. He's like, I waited and waited, and then I realized that they're gone. But I realized that I'm either gonna lay here and die. I'm pretty sure he was like paralyzed. Like from the waist down or something like that. So he's like, I'm gonna lay here and die, or I'm just gonna like get over it, figure it out, and then just crawl out of here. So he like rolled out from this rock, and he had a rock in his hand, and he drew a line in front of him in like the sand of the dirt, and he pulled himself with his arms up to that line, and then he drew another line in front of him as far as he could reach.
Dang.
And drug himself with his arm. I think it was like 5 or 6 miles.
Dang.
To where he could be saved. And
Sheesh.
that was interesting for me to think about. I watched that movie during the summer.
Did you?
And I'm like, man, sometimes I like think about how hard it is to walk around in the sun in nice clothes with a nice car with air conditioning, drinking water bottles that are given to me for free. And that's when it clicked. And I'm like, man, that's such BS. Like when I tell myself I'm having a hard time, I just need to get over it. Because there's so many people that do so many hard things that are legit titled and can qualify for being hard things. What I'm doing is not one of those things.
Yeah.
So all I got to do is just tell myself like, oh, well, just quit being you know what I mean? And just get over it and then figure it out. And all of a sudden, like it gets really easy.
Yeah.
And that was like a mental transition for me to where like, instead of thinking, man, this is tough. Like, I don't know if I'm going to make a sale. I don't know like what I'm going to do to reach my goals or whatever. It's like, well, I mean, what do I got to do to make a sale? It's not that hard. Like, how many doors do I need to knock on? What do I need to change to make it happen?
That's huge, dude. That mentality's it's so big. We've talked about this a little bit with shifting your focus from like work ethic and not caring as much about results to like, I mean, when I sell, and this is how I try to teach this, is like, you're here to sell. So the sales results actually really matter. Now there's a lot of things you should do to get those, but like, we just go off of the sale, you know? What am I trying to say with this? Well, it's what we watched with that Eric Thomas video, where Eric Thomas he's talking about the difference between a gazelle and a lion, or the difference between like a lion and, I don't know, like someone who works a 9 to 5, right? It's like someone who works with 9 to 5 closes the doors at 9 or closes the doors at 5 and goes home. But like a lion, if you think about this, like they're not going to feed their pride or their little lion kids if they don't hunt and get a gazelle. Yeah. And so his like one liner is like, a lion doesn't go by the clock, a lion goes by the gazelle. And that's how I feel in like sales. It's like you eat what you kill. You're hunting every day. And so like, yeah, sure, you can do all these process oriented things like, okay, I'm going to work really hard and knock more doors or whatever, but you know, or like I'm going to work really hard between this hour and this hour and hopefully I'll get sales. But like, once you can shift your mentality to say like, I'm not leaving this area today until I have 7, 8, 10 sales under my belt. It's a very different mentality than I'm just going to work as hard as I can today and see what happens.
Interesting.
You know, in this block of time.
Yeah.
And when I started making that shift in sales, like just everything changed. It was like, all right, so today's goal is 6. It's not necessarily a goal. It's like, I'm not leaving until I have 6 today.
Yeah.
I know I only have 3 hours to knock, but like, I will leave this area with 6 new sales. It's just a different mentality.
In previous summers, you know, like the term bageling in sales is like when you don't sell an account during a day.
What is that?
Like bageling, like you just eat a big zero, basically. I've never heard of it before, but that's what I heard. Someone told me. Basically, like that I didn't do last year or this year. And I did it a lot my first year. It was not an option for me this year. And it was as simple as that. Like I made the decision and then all of a sudden, like when I texted Braden Searle, like it was probably like, man, it was probably July or August. And I closed the deal at like 9:50 at night. And I'd never done that before. Yeah. But at 9:40 at night, I was at a 0 still. And I'm like, well, dude, I'm not going to go home with 0. I just made a commitment to not do that. So at 9:45, I knocked on a door and he's like, oh, well, we were actually really looking for this. Like, I'm glad you showed up. And then his wife literally pulled into the driveway like 2 minutes later and I closed him on the spot. And they're like, and then they were serviced the next day and it was a done deal. So that was super easy. But what I think of a quote that I've memorized a long time ago, it said like, that which you persist in doing becomes easier for us to do. Not that the nature of the thing itself has changed, but that the power to do is increased. And that's as simple as that. Like what you do with what you know determines what you're going to get. And it's just so freaking simple. All we got to do is follow the
it really is, dude.
rules.
And it's crazy how much you figure out on the way when you're just determined to whatever that is. So for that's the same thing. That's how my mind works now with sales. It's like you're giving yourself ultimatums, but you actually are in so much more control of those outcomes than you think you are. You know, so like your first summer. I remember doing the math and saying like, okay, my standard has to be 6 a day minimum if I'm going to hit my personal sales goal. And this is with all the responsibilities I have. So like there is no scenario in which I do not leave every single day with at least 6. And so when we would go on Saturdays, my whole team knew that like you could ride out to area with me on Saturdays, but if I don't have 4 by like 2 p.m., and so on Saturdays it was even worse. It was like I'd have to do at minimum 6, but I was always trying to do 10 on Saturdays. Okay. So my team just knew that if I didn't have 4 by like 2 p.m., then like they needed to find an Uber home because I was going to stay out until I had 8 to 10 new deals. And that's such a different mindset. You stack that up every day over the course of 100 days of selling. I mean, it's the difference between the guys that make like, frankly, like 50, 75, 100,000 to the guys that make like 250, 300, 400K. Is like that mindset of saying my line in the sand, I'm not willing to do less than this on any given day.
Super interesting.
And it has to start with like not bageling. I mean, I don't remember the last time I didn't sell when I went out for more than 30, 40 minutes. Yeah. There may be days I don't remember them though. Yeah. I'm willing to acknowledge that.
I don't know.
No, actually I don't. But that like when you start raising that and you say like, okay, well, based on what my goals are for this year, I have to do at least 4 or 7 or 10 a day.
Yeah.
It's different. And you'll figure out how to do it. If that's your like actual standard,
yeah,
everything will change about the way you view sales. So it's like, oh, I'm not the best at sales. Well, what happens when like you have to be in order to get that? You'll figure it out. It's not like a training thing. Yes, training helps with certain people, but like when you're so determined to go get the results you want, you'll become an expert at sales.
Interesting.
And then you'll easily be able to teach more people because now you understand like how people make decisions and all the trickle down effect of that. I'm super rambling here now.
But, no, I like that. Yeah. Well, it's funny that like you taught me that towards the beginning of the summer. And towards the beginning of the summer, I did not have the confidence that I had towards the middle and or now, right? And at the beginning of the summer, like I was stoked if I sold an account like at 3, 4, 5 o'clock. And then towards the middle, towards the end, I'm freaking pissed if I don't have 2 or 3 accounts by like 3, 4, 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like I would show up, I'd get out of my car and I had the expectation that I'm going to sell like 1 or 2 or 3 of the first people that I visit with.
Yeah.
Versus like, man, I hope I can talk to somebody today. And I hope I can close. And like that transition, you just have like a hunger and you have a power.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's huge. Like, man, I know what to do because they taught it to me so simply. And then all my job is to just follow through with it and do the freaking work. And that's what it is. That's like, yeah.
How did that shift then from the beginning to middle and end of the summer, like getting that confidence? Was it like what caused that to happen?
That's a great question. I would say just like being able to, I mean, you helped me a lot just to see potential in myself, you know, and going from a place where I was questioning that to being able to be with someone who would reassure me and then be able to like have reminders for myself and start to reassure myself. I meet with a therapist like every other week as well.
Cool.
And that was a conversation that I had with him as well. And he helped me with that a lot.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden I am able to find triggers that are the opposite of what they were before. Because I'd have triggers that would like put me in a place of uncomfortability and it would make me question myself. And all I had to do was address that and now turn those triggers into a trigger that like the response to that is now I'm powerful. I'm really good at what I do. And I'm going to be able to like close anybody that I visit with.
Dude, can I show you or read something from 7 Habits? You reminded me of this. So, dude, this is so fascinating. Some people say that you have to like yourself before you can like others. I think that idea has merit, but if you don't know yourself, if you don't control yourself, if you don't have mastery over yourself, it's very hard to like yourself, except in short-term psych up superficial ways.
Wow.
So why does what you just said made me think of that is because, I mean, Covey's basically saying like, there is no quick fix of gaining confidence.
Yeah.
You gain confidence by proving to yourself that you'll do what you say you're going to do. And really by connecting with like who you are deep down as a person. But what he's saying here is like, it's not just about like liking who you are. It's actually, you had proven to yourself in those first, 30, 60 days of selling, it's like, oh, I can actually do this. Why? Because like I'm doing it every single day. I tell myself I'm going to go out and sell today and I actually do it. I tell myself I'm going to get out of the car as soon as I get to area or whatever, and I actually do it. And you just stack those up for even a short period of time. All of a sudden you view yourself differently. So there's no quick fix of gaining confidence. It's like, it's the trickle down effect of, what does he say? Of knowing yourself, controlling yourself, and having mastery over yourself. And then that brings confidence. And then that just exudes itself through all of the sales techniques, talking with people. And now you're in control of all the outcomes each day because you deep down, you have confidence in yourself. You trust yourself.
Super interesting. I guess that helps me to remember something that would finish answering your question. The reason that I was... No. I actually didn't think about this until you shared that. But the reason that I was able to like go from a place of like questioning myself to being like stupid confident is the first 1 or 2 months, I knocked a lot of freaking doors.
Yeah.
And I knocked a lot more doors than I had in times past.
Yeah.
And that was just a numbers game that I was just able to prove to myself, like, one, I can do the work and I can do the work better than a lot of people. Not that we're like comparing between other people, but like that's something to help you see like, okay, you're actually good at what you do.
Yeah.
And then 2, like repetition over and over and over and over again. It just idiot proofed it for myself to see that like, dang, like if long as you can do the work, like you're going to get the outcome. It's as simple as that.
It's like it's destined to happen.
And then there's a belief system change, and it's like, okay, instead of questioning everything that I'm doing, it's just like pushing myself in everything that I'm doing.
Interesting,
and
dude.
Work gets easy because it gets fun.
Yes.
Which is really, really cool.
When did it start getting fun for you? Like actually the job itself, knocking doors, talking with people, selling really well?
As soon as I convinced myself that I was good at what I do, to be honest, because then it's a game.
Yeah.
It's just a cat and mouse game between like, how many people do I need to get to open the door before I can help them see the value in what I do,
right?
Or who I am.
Yeah.
Both at the same time.
Yeah. Actually
so it didn't take very long, actually. It took a lot of effort,
sure,
but the timeline was pretty short, I think.
No, I mean, you were already selling like 7, 8, even your first. When was your first 10-day that you had?
Probably like a few weeks in.
Yeah,
something like that.
I mean, we were crushing pretty quick, like as soon as we got out there.
Yeah,
but and which was fun to watch because, and like I'm like also there like right next to you, and we're like
we were
So it was cool to see how if from my perspective, like how easy it is to actually be really good at this sales game.
Yeah.
It's the same. So all the things that like make you good at what you do, the confidence, how that all lines up, it's the same equation for every person. It's just a matter of figuring out where they're currently at and then the next things they need to do to get better. So like as you're coaching people, you can always just like anytime as you're recruiting your team, building your team, anytime you feel stumped by like, man, I don't know what to do with this, just remember it's the same for everybody. It's like, where's this guy at? What does he need in order to build his confidence so that he can trust and really rely on himself to go do the work? And then the skills are just really easy after that.
Well, it's funny you say that because I didn't build this for myself. It was you that helped me do all of this from the start of the summer.
So in what way? I'm not to
basically in what you just said.
But
like what you just said is that like, what does he need? What do I need to help him with? And then what does he need to do? And you helped me from your perspective to see what do I need? Where am I at? And then what do I need to do? And then all of a sudden you helped me just start to see that you're better than what you say or think you are.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And then you showed me too.
Yeah, that's a huge point too, is because like, it wasn't just like, we texted about this and all of a sudden like, oh, now Cole's selling 10.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but you were like actively engaged in the whole process too, to where I knew that like you actually had genuine interest in helping me be better.
Yeah.
And that was huge because that's fuel. Because instead of like just trying to believe in yourself, you see that other people believe in you too. And other people have motives that are trying to help you be better.
Interesting.
And it's so much easier. One, it's so much easier to let yourself down than it is to let other people down, especially people that you're really close with. Maybe that's just a me thing, but that's how I am.
No, I think everybody's like that at some level.
To a point. I think like I will do so much more for other people, especially when I know other people have put like sincere effort into helping me or helping someone do something.
Yeah.
I'm there. But for myself, it's really easy to justify and make excuses and to drop out of a commitment. So that was interesting because I knew that like you were there, you were helping, and like on top of all the other things that you had going on, you were putting in the time to help me make that change.
Right.
And that was huge. So I look forward to being able to do that in the future with people to help them see that.
Yeah, that's big.
I really want to help.
So at the risk of people thinking that sales skills matter more than they actually do, I still want to know, like, from your perspective, what types of new skills you developed this year from a sales tactics standpoint.
Less than I want to admit. You know what I mean? I think.
In what way?
My persistence was increased more than my sales skills ability.
Okay, explain that to me.
I don't quit, and I have been on certain doors 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 times visiting with those people. At least half of those like times that I knocked on that door, and I closed them on the 9th or the 8th or the 10th time.
Okay, so there's even just a tactic in and of itself is like, I mean, how valuable was it to just re-knock the same areas over and over
gold
and
mine.
over again?
Yeah, it was so sweet.
So how did that change from? I'm bouncing all over the place here. I realize. But how did that change from like the previous year that you had knocked? In your like just your strategy of like
hated re-knocking.
So why though?
Don't know. It was scary.
Okay.
I think I felt really comfortable knocking fresh doors. I think like looking back is I always had this fear in the back of my head that like I knocked on that door. I know you're freaking home. They didn't answer. And I've had a few encounters to where like they'd open the next time I go back and they're like, I didn't answer the first time for a reason. Quit knocking on my door. And I'm like, dude, you have no idea what I'm doing yet. And he looks at me like I just discovered fire. And I'm like, you don't, like, I'm just selling pest control. Like, it's not anything crazy.
I just discovered fire.
And I'm like, pump the brakes.
Do not let me forget the story, dude, about the Segway this year when you beefed it in there.
Oh, I would love to.
I have to tell my version of it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, so I want to stay on this though, because like this is just from a training standpoint, and I know it's very specific to just door to door, but
yeah,
my assessment is that most guys don't like re-knocking because they piss so many people off in the areas that they
That's a great summary from what I was saying. Yeah. Yes, but that is a freaking myth, and I will stand by that for the rest of my life.
What's a myth?
The idea that you're actually going to piss people off when you re-knock.
Oh yeah, okay, so but that's why they don't like it, is because
that's why I didn't like it,
because your skills aren't good enough to be actually let me think through how this actually works. Because you care too much about being right and winning conversations, you don't use the right sales skills to be persistent but not seem like you're being persistent. So because you care more about being right rather than like playing the numbers game, not like actually persuading people, and that leads to not using the correct skill set, which leads to just making everyone upset at you. And then that's why no one wants to re-knock areas, because they suck.
Super interesting.
So, but the thing that you found as working with me is that like I'll re-knock any area as many times as humanly possible, because if you can just be nice to people, right? Because you don't care about like winning each door. Because a lot of people will be like, you know, it's like whatever the Wolf of Wall Street thing is, like they either buy or die or whatever, right? I hate that mentality, because you leave so much money on the table by doing that.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you just burn, you're just going to burn the bridge when someone tells you no?
Yes. Yeah.
And then now you're going to ruin that. For one, you just don't feel very good on the next door. But like, you can never go back and talk to that person and sell them. Whereas the way that we sell is you just keep talking to them, and you just be the neighborhood guy that everyone loves. Yeah. And so that's why, like, you know, you knocked a lot of the areas that I had knocked, and like I'd talk to everybody 10, 15 times in those areas. Yeah. And it wasn't that every day I would talk to less people because there's less doors to knock. It was like I was talking to 100 people a day. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's the same 25 a day or something, right? Yeah. But that, I think, just people that don't knock that way are just leaving so much money on the table. I would agree. And maybe this is contradictory, but I would very, very, very strongly push the idea that like the people that are worried about pissing people off, the people that actually do piss people off on a regular basis, it's their fault. And it's a choice that they've made. Always. You know what I mean? Because like you and I, we knocked the same neighborhood over and over and over and over again. And I could probably count on one hand how many people actually like cussed me out this summer. And like compared to a previous summer, that would be a very different story. Right, dude. But my intention was to leave a good impression, because then I could loop through and you were just like killing it. Yes. And there's a lot of competition still. This is a fun analogy. There's a guy that I like follow on Instagram, and he has this phrase. He's like, my goal is to just try to be a Fruit Loop and a bowl of Cheerios. And I'm like, that's kind of interesting. And Fruit Loop and a bowl of Cheerios. And I look at like our competition is just a bowl of Cheerios, right? And I'm trying to be the Fruit Loop. Just saying he's trying to be different. Yeah, very different. Right. So like most people, and we knocked with a lot of competition in Dallas. Tons, dude. Most people are very good at pissing people off because they're persistent to a point of annoyance. And then all of a sudden people are like, get the freak off my porch. And then I'd show up and I just try to be like really chill, really calm. And I push and pitch, but I also like have been able to register that boundary between like persistence and annoyance. Right. And if you can stop yourself there, then all of a sudden come back in 2 weeks, they have that seed planted that like, oh, this guy's selling pest control. And they talked to 5 more people that weren't like that. Yes, but you left the impression that was different than all 5 of those people. All of a sudden you show up, even if they're in the garage, if they're in the yard, their kids are playing outside. It's like, hey, do you mind if I just leave you with a card? I know we talked really quick last time. Dude, that's another thing. So at the risk of also rookies doing this to too much or whatever, I also want to talk about that in a second. Okay. I was wondering if we were going to chat about that. No, I want to for sure. But then again, like that was my second chance. And if the second chance didn't follow through, then I'm going to be there again, like 3rd, 4th, 5th chance. Yeah. And then you just close them and it's cool. Like I remember just before I left one of my last neighborhoods, I had sold almost every single person on the street. And I had rolled through, there were 2 people that I didn't sell. And one of them was like, just kept telling me like, I'll call you. I'm like, I know for a fact you're not going to call me. But I rolled through and there was this lady outside and she like yelled my name out. She remembered my name.
And I was on my Segway and she's like, hey, Cole. And she was talking to the neighbor next door that I didn't sell. And she's like, I love your service, by the way. Like everything's going super well. And like, I haven't had any issues with bugs since I signed up. And she looks at this guy next to him and she's like, you should sign up with him because he does really good. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a little biased, but I think you should too. Like we should talk. And then I went back later that night and I closed him.
Dude.
And all of a sudden I'd left an impression on her and it was that and this and it came together and she communicated. I think people trust the consumer more than the producer more often than not. And then it was easy. So,
dude. And yeah. it gets to the point to where like when you have all of the follow-up treatments happening in the same time and like you go back to the same neighborhood and you're like, them.
So you're the only one that I'm not treating. What do we need to do to change that?
Exactly. Or cool. They have a bad experience with a competitor and they're like, we just canceled. We don't even want to do the rest of the year. And just by the fact that you're different, people will want to go with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other thing, dude, I also been thinking about the business card thing too, where like one thing I hate is when people are like, hey, could you just leave me with the card? And then sales reps are like, I'm not the card guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you might as well just say like, hey, I hate you and your family.
I don't want your business.
I don't want your business.
Yeah.
So instead what we started doing was I just like in my mind, I was like, what if I am the card guy though? And you just leave a card on every door. But so something unexpected happened though, to where like I kind of hate bugging people when they're like walking their dog or like going to get the mail.
Yeah.
I like to, if I can get on the doorstep, like that's the ideal way to talk to someone.
Yeah.
But every day we were getting like 2 to 3 sales where like the approach was, hey, can I just leave you with the card? And they're like, sure. Like walls come down. They're like, yeah, what are you selling? Like, no pressure. Like you're probably not going to want this anyway, but just call me if you're like, what are you doing though?
You can almost try to talk somebody out of it and they would follow you.
Dude, yes. Is they're like, no, but what are you actually doing? I'm like, oh, so, well, if you really want to know, I'm Hayden. I'm the bug guy in the area. They're like, oh, okay. Yeah, we've already got something. And again, no pressure, but like, who do you guys use? And then now you're like, you're into the sale.
Yeah.
And it started with like really awkward situation if you didn't have something to like have a front for you, which is the card.
Yeah.
That's more of, I guess, like a high level technique, but like that, I mean, it was like 3 or 4 sales a day.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
And I did not expect it to work like that. It was almost like certain days it was like,
well, that's what I was telling
the guys. Am I like being punked or like what's going on? Is this a joke?
How does this work so well?
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is I was trying to get people to do this for like 2 years. And they'd be like, nah, that's not going to work. I'm like,
interesting.
Well, I guess,
all right,
we'll see. And then finally I was like, Cole, we got it. It's cards. This is the play, bro. Cards.
Interesting.
Like, are you sure? I'm like, I'm positive.
Yep. And
then the thing I didn't expect though is how easy it made it to approach people in awkward situations.
Yeah.
And get sales from it every day. It's like, holy cow.
Yeah, you can't really argue with that.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
What other like techniques, sales tactics, things like worked for you that were kind of new for you this year?
I would say just being able to find a really good routine on the doors. And with that routine, it means like the way that you stand, the way that you ensure that you don't move, unless like you're comfortable moving.
Even in like the micro routines, like each door.
Yeah. So I got to a point where like towards the end of my summer, I was the exact same person on every single doorstep until like something changed. To where I'd stand in the exact same place. I'd stand the exact same distance away from the door. I would knock it. I would wait 10 seconds and then I would ring it. And then I would wait 5 or 10 seconds. If I heard people, I would stay. If I didn't hear anyone, I would leave.
Interesting.
So I had almost perfected this routine for myself that gave me a lot of power because I felt really confident in this routine.
Yeah.
And then when people opened the door, I would be looking at my iPad. I would look up as soon as they like started to communicate with me to show that I was busy. And then like I just would build on that routine. But tonality was also a huge thing that changed, is being able to just like manipulate my tonality to show people that I'm non-threatening.
Yeah.
And that was huge.
Can I dive into your routine thing for a second?
Yeah.
Like what's your assessment of why that worked for you?
Kind of go back to that phrase that I used earlier, like
idiot proof it.
Well, yeah, that too, idiot proof it. But that what you do, it's
that what you persist in doing.
That what you persist in doing.
Not the nature of the tasks can't change, but your Henry David Thoreau, I think.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So I just got really good.
Maybe. Can you look that up for me? Is it? I think it's Henry David Thoreau or Ralph Waldo Emerson.
That is it. Actually, I think. I don't know. We're gonna find out in a second.
Okay.
I started with one thing though. So I started with like just my stance. And then I got really good with just my stance. And then
fascinating.
Like it didn't take very much time for me to like also include like what I do with my arms, you know, like am I going to move my arms when I pitch somebody or am I going to stay still? So I would try 1 or 2 or 3 things and I would just basically like gauge the reception. And if it worked, great, I keep it. If it doesn't, I change it. And it's like that simple. And then I had 2 things that I was really good at. And then I would incorporate 1 more thing. And then I would start to do something a little different. And then I would move into like my tonality.
Interesting.
And then I just worked through my pitch after that. Like I started with my body language and then I moved to my tonality. I moved to my words.
Yeah.
And then I moved to my like feature and benefits.
Meaning in your progression of like standardizing things for yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Just like basically solidifying what works really well for Cole. Because like every sales rep is different. Right? Everyone has different tendencies. And for myself, like I'm a very routine oriented person.
Yeah.
So I get really good with like one aspect of my introduction to where like I didn't change my introduction hardly at all summer long. It was the same thing over and over and over again. And I know a lot of reps would change it like
on every door basically
all the time. And it's like, oh, I have competition. I better change my pitch. I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to keep it the same because I'm really good at keeping it the same.
Yeah.
And now like my really good pitch that is the exact same thing I've used for every other door sounds better than yours because you keep changing it all the time.
Yeah.
There's just no consistency. And I had a backbone with myself because I had consistency. I had something to depend on.
So do you fully realize why that works though? Like what you're actually doing? Because you're saying that you're building a routine and consistency, which I think is a huge element of it. But there's something else at play that like is fun to recognize while you're talking. And that is that you're eliminating variables. So you're eliminating changing variables with every, like that is why it's important to be consistent with the routine and with stuff like this for if you're like a producer, a sales producer. So you have to find like all of the variables that could change and then create consistency across those variables so that you actually know what works and what doesn't. So this is like when people do like elimination diets, for example, it's like, or actually a better example would be like, I'm taking, I don't know how many supplements right now. How do I know which one of them is actually doing what thing? Unless you can standardize it. And then when you add something new and you're like, oh, okay, now that I have this new thing, something changed in like how I feel or in my physiology. So like, I know that it's not any of the other things. It's this new thing that I just added.
Super interesting.
So I mean, it's kind of the same thing as what you're saying, but it's slightly different in the sense that like when you can create consistency in the variables, that allows you to see what works and what doesn't. And then by being able to see what works and what doesn't, you can actually control your production. Whereas most people, like you said, they just like shoot from the hip and they're just like, well, as long as I work hard and I have a good attitude, like somehow I'm going to sell well. It's like, yeah, that's great. But like, that's why you should track your statistics every day. This is why I was so obsessive about like the funnel of like tracking, or at least when I'm coaching reps, of like, how many doors do you knock? How many people do you talk to a day?
Yeah.
And then how many of those people do you even get to price with? And then how many of those people that you get to price with say yes when you close them? And then how many of those people that you get to price with but say no do you get 3 objections deep with? Because if someone can show me, like if you came up to me and said, hey Hayden, so like these are my stats from yesterday, I can go look at those stats and I can say like, well, you're getting to price with 20 people a day, let's say, but you're only closing like 4 of them. So what's happening is everything before price, basically. So then we say, okay, well, how many doors did you knock versus how many people you talked to? And I'm like, well, I knocked like 400 doors, but I only talked to 100. It's like, I could just say knock harder.
Yeah.
Because you're knocking too many doors per how many people you're talking to. So like, you need to talk to more people. And they're like, well, for every 100 people I talk to, they only even let me get my introduction for like 50 of them. It's like, well, now you can work on that thing that happens before the introduction. It just gives you really detailed insights into like what's actually happening as a trainer. But it's even better what you're saying, because now you can really like, when you build consistency in that routine, it's just so easy to see where things go wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas when you don't do that, then it's kind of just like up to chance every day. You're like, oh, what happened today? Well, I mean, I sold really well. Like, why? Like, I don't know, just a good day.
Yeah. No,
whereas like, I don't think very few people you can ask like, why did you sell well today? And they'll be able to tell you.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
Super
or why didn't you sell well today? And they won't be able to tell you because they just don't know.
Yeah. Just not aware. A little ignorance going on.
Long-winded version of, or
no, I love
to
that.
say what you reinforce what you just said.
That's cool. And when you say that, that makes me think that like 100%, that was like my intention behind having that consistency, because then I knew that I can control everything that's in my control, and I didn't have to worry about the things that were outside of my control.
Yep.
And yeah, it's easy at that point.
Dude, and that's another good point too, is like when you build a routine that's predictable, then it just doesn't matter what other people say to you at the door. It doesn't matter what happened during the day. It doesn't matter if so-and-so sold really well today or didn't. It's like, I know what works well for me. And if I just get better at all of these things, then or if but you know what those things are.
Yeah. And I got to be so confident in that routine that I had that if I didn't sell the first 30 people that I talked to, then I knew that I was not doing something that I was supposed to be doing.
Interesting.
And I just had to go back and like reeval, like, okay,
find what that was.
Just go dig and figure out, like, am I standing weird? Am I saying something weird? Do I just have no energy? Do I have a bad attitude?
Yeah.
Because then there were like subsurface things. It's my attitude or my work ethic or my energy. And those are things that like were outside of my routine, but those are things that affected my routine.
Right.
And that was kind of fun.
Okay. So what were you saying about tonality? Like how did that change for you this year? This is what we would call paraverbals. It's like how your voice sounds.
Paraverbals.
Right? But NLP calls this tonality. A bunch of sales trainers use the word tonality as well.
I didn't understand the effect that it has on communication.
Okay.
None whatsoever. I did not get it. But like, you want me to use an example, I guess?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, you used this in a video lately. I think you were talking about me actually, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
That like introduction, I think, is like the most important part for me with tonalities, to where like if you open the door, typically I'm not a very like popular guy in the neighborhood. Like doing what we do, most people like the first thing that they want to do is get you off the doorstep.
Yeah.
So if you open the door and I'm just kind of like negative and I just have like a draw in my voice, it's like, hey, how you doing today? Most of the time people are like, what do you want? Like they'll respond in the same tone. One, they're not going to have any energy or any enthusiasm to talk to you. And if people don't want to talk to you, you're not going to close them.
Right.
So in response to that, I would change that. You helped me a lot with this, that instead of like, hey, how you doing today? It's like, hey, how you doing today?
Yeah.
And very, very different response, like complete diffusion of anybody that's pissed for one. And then two, like people want to talk to you because you just have an energy that's different than what they've been associated with through their day.
Yes, dude.
And if like you're cool, if you're positive and if you're enthusiastic, all of a sudden, like you're just a magnet for people.
Yeah. They like want to talk to you. It's like refreshing for them.
Yeah.
I used to think that when I started really selling well, I used to think like, okay, how do I make it so that people are just better off in general by talking to me today versus not?
That's cool.
So like, and so like you said, everyone kind of hates the door-to-door guy that goes around and is kind of, confident maybe, but like a bit of an a-hole. Yeah. It's like, all right, I don't want to be that guy, but how can I make it so that like every person I talk to actually has a better day after talking with me than not?
That's cool.
And that's how tonality for me fit into like my own pitch was just like, I was trying to be the person that it was just way easier to talk to and that they legit had a better day when they were done talking with me.
That is super cool.
So instead of being like, hey man, what's up? How's it going? I'm just like only really confident. They'd be like, yeah, what do you want? I'd be like, hey, how are you doing today? What's up, man? How's it going? It's nice to meet you. My name's Hayden. And then I just wait. Good to meet you too. I'm John. Like, nice to meet you, John. Well, so the reason and then now you're like into your pitch.
Interesting.
Hey, how you doing today?
It's so almost freaky to see the difference in response from people.
Dude, it's wild how well you can control it too, right?
And it doesn't actually take very much effort. Honestly, it's more effort to be like a Debbie Downer and just be like monotoned than it is to actually change things. Yeah. Because like it changes your character in the way that you transfer everything that you do too, which makes you feel better about what you're doing because you're doing well. And then all of a sudden, like it just ripple effect.
Yeah. You really get back from people like what you put out to them.
Yeah.
It also really fascinating how when you meet people in their world, like at their level of tone of voice, how you can easily change that just by shifting your tonality.
Yeah. Like just mirroring to where
matching. Well, mirroring would be like copying almost. It's like copying step for step what they're doing. Matching is more of like, I'm trying to replicate like the feel of your tone of voice and your body language because people like talking to people that look and sound like them.
Interesting.
And so in their mind, psychologically, they're thinking like, oh, I relate better to a person who looks and sounds like me, whereas a person who's above or below in like my tone of voice or body language, the feeling, I can't really relate to that type of person. So, if you're talking with like an old grandma who comes out and she's like, like it's really maybe struggling to speak or something, you just talk in a lower tone of voice, like, hey, how are you doing today? Whereas if it's like a guy comes out and he's like trying to boss you around, it's like, yeah, what do you want, man? Like, not much. How you doing today, by the way?
That is so true.
How's it going?
Yeah.
Good.
That
my
is
name's
super
Hayden, by the way. So you match them and then you can change their. It's wild. It's like Jedi mind tricks, but it's crazy actually how well it works though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you say that with like the big dude. I think that I do that naturally in response to people that are just coming out being like just an a-hole. And like people come out and they're like, what do you want? And I'm like, nothing, doing pest control. And then all of a sudden, like you almost kind of put them in their place and they recognize that like, oh, well, if he responded to me like that, that's pretty much just what I did. And I didn't like that. So maybe I should knock that off.
Yeah.
And then they're cool afterwards. And it's like, oh, dang, yeah, you should just behave and have a conversation like an adult. Yeah. Dang it.
Dude, I remember knocking behind some of my sales reps and a couple summers ago when I was team leading. I would go, we ran out of like area. This is actually where I learned how to knock, re-knock really, really well. So I would go just randomly pick one of my guys like and knock in their area from like 2 or 3 days previous. And I'd turn off all pins. So I wasn't like going and finding callbacks.
Just going in blind.
But I just knew that everyone would be like, oh, Moxie was just here. So instead I'd wear a different color shirt. I'd keep track of what color shirts my team was wearing. I'd wear a different colored shirt. And I'd just be like, hey, so I'm Hayden, the local bug guy. That's like, or I'm Hayden, the bug guy. I'm the neighborhood bug guy. Like, yeah, we talked to someone the other day or yesterday. I'm like, I understand. How's your day going, by the way? Like, then you get really curious about like them. And it's crazy just to see how fast they change. They're like, good. It's good. How are you? Good. Thanks. My name's Hayden, by the way. Nice to meet you. And then you just wait and they're like, my name's Jane or something. I'm like, nice to meet you, Jane. So sorry, as I was saying, the reason I'm stopping by, I'm sure you talked to like 10 people this week, right? A couple days ago, that's what I hear. There was someone around. Yeah. Well, listen, everybody's been upgrading because of and then you like, now you're into the pitch, but they're actually listening to you because you sound and can relate to them. And then you bring them up to your level of certainty that you need them to be at to make a decision.
Interesting.
I'm a little fuzzy today, dude. I'm not speaking.
No. I love that. No, I mean, you keep saying these things and it just kind of recalls things that happened during this summer. To where like on that point, I got into a really, really, I guess you could call it strong opinion that like, if people didn't want to talk to me, no freaking way they wanted to buy from me.
1000% with everyone. That is always going to be the case.
Well, so that was cool for 2 reasons. One, a lot of salesmen just don't care about that. And they'll just push and push and push to where you get into that annoyance aspect.
Then you just hope for somehow like a miracle falls from the sky and like they finally say yes. Dude, and you're like,
but that's when everyone starts to cuss at you. That's when everyone starts to yell at you. That's when you have a long day because you're inducing it.
Yeah.
So the return side to that is like, I started to recognize like when people don't want to talk to me, and that means I either need to change something or I need to just go find somebody that does want to talk to me.
Yes.
And that helped me just remove a lot of wasted time.
Yeah.
And then it helped me find a lot more people that wanted to talk to me. And those are all of the people that I closed.
Dude. And you get on, so you move away from the no quickly.
Yeah.
Which it also makes it so much easier too. So like this is what we do where, someone would be like, hey, I'm not interested at all. I already have a service or whatever. Be like, hey, can I leave you with a card at least? In case you like reconsider down the road. They're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, who are you guys with, by the way? Now, like, you just get back into the sale. Yeah. But then if they tell you no again, or if you just, like you're saying, maybe you didn't win their trust and so they're being like really cold.
Yeah.
That person's never buying from you, ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you like already missed it basically. So just move on. And don't feel bad about it. Who cares? Just move on to the next door.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, what I found there too is they're not going to buy from me, but I have sold a majority of those people by going back in a month or 2 months.
That's why I was like so frustrated that I didn't knock the rest of the summer with you. Cause like,
just to teach me that
100. Well, not that. Cause I was just like,
well, lots of reasons.
It's obviously. Like 100 sales or 150, like month 1. If you do it like what we're saying about how to re-knock, then it's like 200 month 2. Then you can sell like 250 month 3.
Yeah.
And like 400 month 4.
It's crazy.
Why? Because you're talking to those people like for the 7th, 8th time.
Yeah.
And they already talked to all the other sales reps that suck.
They left a bad taste in their mouth.
Yeah. And so now you're back and they were going to buy from someone anyway. They were just waiting for someone like you.
And you left a good taste from the first impression.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm here again.
That is one of the tangible reasons why August should be the highest producing sales month of any month. Because it's just so much easier to sell people in August.
Super interesting.
I remember Jason gave this training one time in Dallas where he was talking about selling in August, and he's like, you know, I go around to some of the offices and everybody's complaining about how it's harder to sell right now. It was like beginning of August or late July.
Yeah.
And obviously not us because we were crushing it, but he was like, it's interesting to me to see that there's more bugs. It's more humid than it is the entire summer right now. They've already been told like 50 times by other salesmen that they need pest control.
Yeah.
And so what could possibly be the thing that's making it so you're selling less?
And they're at the peak of the issues with the company that they have right now.
Yes. So like, why would you ever sell less in that scenario?
Huh?
Because of the sales rep, because they suck, because they're not actually like owning it themselves and saying like, oh wait, maybe I'm the variable that's different. That is, you know, not like owning up to the fact that I can control these outcomes here. Yeah, interesting.
Wow. It's a pride pill to swallow if you want to get better.
Yeah. So when I was 21 years old, I had big dreams of a few things. Becoming a millionaire by the time I was 30, that was a big goal of mine. I wanted to own my own business, and I wanted to create financial freedom through investing in real estate, startups, any other type of vehicle that would give me passive income so that I could really provide for my family and my parents in a significant way because of how much they sacrificed for me growing up. I didn't grow up in the most well-off household, and so I really wanted to create a life for my family that they could be comfortable. I'm a grandchild of immigrants, and I had a lot of people in my life that came before me that have sacrificed a ton to create the good things that I have. I wanted to create financial freedom so that I could give back and serve significantly. I thought I was going to do that by, first off, playing football in the NFL. I obsessed over football growing up, but then I quickly got cut from my college team upon arriving, basically. So then I thought I was going to do that by getting into a prominent business school and excelling there, and then, you know, getting a high-paying job out of college. And I didn't get into any of the business schools that I applied for, and there were more than one. So I had some, I think, learning disabilities and a couple other things that felt like held me back in that way. Bottom line, it just didn't work. So after all the failed attempts to make money and try to achieve my dreams early, I was basically desperate and just really didn't think that it would all work out. I was doing a bunch of these hourly jobs and barely making ends meet and donating plasma, all the things you do when you're a poor college kid. I had a friend approach me and say that he had made $50,000 doing a sales job during the summer in between semesters. And he was a really well-known and highly prominent athlete. I had grown up hearing about how good he was at football. And so we became friends after I got home from a mission for my church. I just trusted him. So I looked into it. I ended up doing this sales job thinking that it would just be a better way to hold me over while I really figured out how I was going to provide financially for my family and really make a big dent in my dreams. Fast forward a few years later, I was with the same company doing that job over and over again while I was going to school, making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and now coaching and teaching other people how to do the same thing. It completely changed my life in a way that I did not expect, learning how to persuade and influence people at a high level because you practice that day in and day out. That translated over into every other relationship and aspect of my life that I care more about than just sales. And then obviously financially being able to get well ahead of all of my peers and the other people who were not willing to make those sacrifices of doing that sales job during the summer in the off months of school. And then fast forward even more ahead, I was able to become a millionaire by 26 and have a multiple $1 million net worth by the time I was 30, upwards of $10 million plus, and invest in real estate early on in my 20s, be able to give back and help pay for mission trips and do service opportunities that I just otherwise wouldn't have had. But what I'm most proud of is being able to give my family, my parents, my wife, my immediate family the life that they just really never had growing up. Because I think deep down we all want to be the type of people that when all is said and done, we actually have made a difference in other people's lives. And I feel like that's actually really the deep result of what this job ended up doing for me in a way that I just did not expect. Long story short, I'm obsessed with teaching the same things to other people. And since I have gotten to management and now I'm a partner in our company, I've been able to work with upwards of over 1,000 sales reps who are young, ambitious, college age kids mostly, who start doing this job just to pay for school, but end up finding out that it's highly impactful for every other aspect of their life. So right now we are hiring and we have limited spots available to take on of people. So if you're interested, there's a link in the description of this video or in my bio. You can check that out, apply and see if you're a good fit or a candidate for this job. We have personality profiles that can match you with income and earning potential that is very much historically accurate of people that have gone in our program before. And if you take the leap of faith and at least learn about whether this could be a good fit for you, I think you're going to be not only really impressed, but if your results are even half as good as what everyone else has gone through this program has experienced, the only problem that you'll have is that 1, you didn't know about this sooner, and 2, that you didn't sign up and try to do it yesterday. All right, so give it a shot. Check out the link in my bio, and I'll see you guys in the rest of the episode. Okay, so I have a hilarious story about the summer from... Yeah, dude, this was my favorite. I was hoping you forgot about this.
Oh my god, so, yeah. Hopefully he's got dementia. Go ahead,
dude. Okay, so
take it away.
I get to this like new street that I hadn't knocked in my area yet. So the way I knock area is like I start at one section and then I just like add a new street every day, basically. So I'm knocking like let's just say there's like a cul-de-sac and like a block. I'll knock the whole block over and over and over again. Talk to as many people as I can. And the next day I'll do the same thing, but just add one more street on. Huh. So I'm getting to the edge at the end, right? It's like I run out of area, so I'm like, I have like tons of people on this one street that like didn't answer. So I'm gonna go back and like hit them at a different time. And I try to strategically plan how I knock area based on when new people would be home for different times of day. So. And you were in the neighborhood right next to me.
Yes, I was.
So, and this is before I picked you up that night, knowing what actually happened. So I knock this door, and this guy opens up, and he's like, "Dude, it's been a long."
This was what, like 8:30 at night, right?
It was like 8. So it wasn't quite getting dark yet.
Word travels fast.
Yeah.
Okay.
But just get this. So like I knock the door, and he's like, "Hey, are you the only one out here on that thing?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "That thing behind you." He was pointing at my Segway. And I'm like, "Oh, like you've seen me riding around?" I'm trying to like jump ahead and assume what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I'm like totally missing it. He's like, "No, are you the only one out here in this neighborhood riding one of those?" I was like, "No, there's like somebody else." And he's like, "Dude, because I just saw the most hilarious video." He goes, "I just saw the most hilarious video of someone just eating it, like beefing it right in front of this house, and like it all got caught on the Ring doorbell." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool.
I know that guy."
Yeah, I was like, "No, that wasn't me, dude. I'm good."
Gosh.
I was like, "But who's your provider? Like, who do you have for Pest Control?" And he's like, "Bro, I'm not interested whatsoever." But that was like the most hilarious thing I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh.
So come to find out, in the other like how far close were we? Like 4 streets apart?
Yeah, quarter of a mile max.
You just ate it on your Segway.
That's
in
putting
front
it
of
lightly.
house, in front of that cop's house. I was like, dude, and then wait, it must have been the next day actually that I talked to this guy, because
that makes sense.
I maybe I did already know that you had wrecked.
I think,
and you finally got the video from the house, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say, because it was like the last door that I'd knocked. I had sold them and I was stoked, right?
Yeah.
So I was riding away and I'd knocked on this lady's house earlier. She was a cop, actually.
Yeah.
And she was like a big security cop. So she had like Vivint cameras freaking everywhere.
Yeah.
And she was super cool, but I just couldn't close her. And I was riding right in front of her house and I was like putting stuff in my iPad because I just closed this lady. And there's like this 2-inch gap, like up root lift in the sidewalk. And I wasn't paying attention and I hit it, and I don't even know what happened, to be honest. But next thing I know, dude, my Segway's going into orbit. Like, this thing is gone. And I just freaking flat as can be, feet up, like head level, just dumped right on the ground. And I had a pocket full of cards. And everything in my pockets, it was a full-on yard sale. Like, all of my cards popped out and just shot all the way down the sidewalk. And then my phone fell out, and I'm just laying there like trying to catch my breath. And there's this guy across the street in his garage with the garage open, and he just looks at me, and I'd like roll my head over and make eye contact with him, and he's like,
"Shuts the garage door."
Yeah, basically, yeah. He didn't even ask me if I was all right, and I'm like, "I'm good,
dude." That's amazing.
Yeah,
I will just never forget. I'm like so confused. The guy's like, "Are you the only one out here on that thing?" And I'm like, "You see me riding around?" It's like, "No, like, is there anyone else in the neighborhood riding one of those?"
Are you the one that embarrassed yourself, or was it somebody else?
I'm like, "Oh yeah, there's 2 of us out here." He's like, "Dude, because someone just ate it."
Oh gosh. Yeah, it was hilarious. So I went back the next day, and I'm like, "Hey, I know you don't want to buy anything, but I have a little secret for you." And we were pulled up her on her camera, and she sent me a copy of the video, and it was pretty bad.
Dude, so funny.
It was pretty bad.
That was amazing.
But
So that
Good
neighborhood
rapport.
was so well connected, like on the Facebook page, that they like.
It was a good thing and a bad thing at the same time.
Did people talk to you about
Yeah.
that after?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You're like,
I had
you're
3
the
or
guy?
4 different people during like the course of the end of the summer that you brought it up even like 2 or 3 months later. I'm
That's
like, yeah,
awesome.
That was me.
Like, wait, you're the guy with the.
Yeah. Still have the scars to prove it.
Dude, that's fabulous.
Good
I
times.
love stories like that. I mean, it feels like so. Actually, this also demonstrates the point of why I love door-to-door sales, is because it doesn't matter what's happened to you that day or like what's going on in your life. It's like people don't care about you
Yes.
at all.
That is the truth.
They only care about what you can do for them, and like a lot of sales reps like hate that. They're like, no, but I just don't like that people lie all the time. And it's like, listen, people aren't the problem, dude. You're the problem.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about you. And so the quicker you can get that into your head that you have to level up and it takes what it takes. It's not about if you've worked as hard as you have ever worked in your life before, because that's probably going to be true.
Yeah.
It's about like doing what it takes. So how many sales you got today is how good you are.
Regardless of. Yeah. No, that's super true.
Yeah.
And that's a freaking transition for most people mentally though, right?
Yeah.
Because like you want to be able to trust everybody on the doors. You want to be able to just assume that what they're telling you is the truth. You want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you finally
Especially
realize
if you're an honest, like good person deep down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because like you expect like the response from whoever you're talking to be somewhat similar to what you would respond with. Like you're going to be honest, you're going to be nice, you're going to be just like a person to person, rather than like your people talk to you like you're an object.
Yeah.
Most of the time people are like GTFO, like get out of here. I don't want you here. And
Yeah,
that's
dude, that concept is really interesting. It's like everyone is lying to you until they actually trust you. So your job is to win their trust. And just, it's okay. They're lying to you.
That is cool though, because
Totally fun.
it's so sweet to be able to like learn how to just earn people's trust and know, like you said, know that you are responsible for that.
Yeah. And you have so much more control than you think.
Super cool.
In a sales interaction.
Yeah.
So we were talking on the last like little bit about tactics that kind of worked for you or were different. I'm really, and you said that like you tried to make your approach, everything from your approach, like how you stood on the door, to even just your intro in general. What was your intro by the end of the summer? Like once you really dialed.
Want me to give it to you?
Yeah.
Oh, tap into the bank here. Like knock knock.
What's up?
Hey, how you doing today?
Good.
Hey, are you the man of the house?
Yeah. What do you mean?
King of the castle, right?
Yeah, sure.
So you probably see me running around. I take care of Bjorn and like 5 or 6 of the neighbors on the street.
I have seen you around. Yeah.
My name's Cole. I just manage Moxie. So it's been for bugs. Pretty boring conversation, right?
Yeah. No, I've already got it, guy.
I figured you did. If you don't mind me asking, who's coming out for you guys?
I don't even know, man.
Do you know, are they doing any good for you guys?
I mean, they're okay. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just am not really here most of the time. So.
That's fair. If they were doing a bad job, you probably would have fired him and called me by now, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the reason, do you know Bjorn next door? The reason he's giving me a shot is because I'm just different than most people.
Okay.
And that would kind of be my intro.
Cool.
But,
yeah. And then so that's your thesis, like everyone's giving me a shot because I'm just different.
Yeah.
So what's then how do you pay that off with features and benefits, or what do you do?
I mean, ideally I know who they're using, and then how much, and then how often, and then I just use that as ammo. But would you tell me that you have like a company?
I've already got a guy. Yeah. Thanks
Okay.
for shouting that.
So do you know who you have coming out by chance?
I don't remember.
Okay. Most people don't. I mean, it's usually the lady that hates the bugs more than anybody, right?
Yeah, usually.
Do you know, do they do like a halfway decent job for you guys?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
I couldn't
that's
even
cool.
tell you. Yeah.
You're good. I know most people, are you home ever when they're around the house? I know most people do the inside, they do the outside. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it seems right.
Anything else that you've seen them do?
I mean, I usually don't watch, but I wouldn't imagine. So
Where I was at, it was the same 5 or 6 or 7 companies, and I usually knew who it was.
Right.
So I would play dumb right here, and I would say, I mean, do you know what they're doing? Like, do they do the inside, do the outside? And then he would just say like, yeah, that's it. And then I would
if it's like most, they probably do.
Then I would just put them in their place, and it's like, okay, I'm the professional. It's like, okay, they do that. They also do the perimeter spray. They do the inside of the garage. They do the weep hole injections on some of the occasion, and then they do like mice if you ask for it, but it's usually an upcharge. Because now they know that I know what I'm talking about.
Well,
and then,
okay, so this has always been my point with like what really good sales reps do when they really start leveling up is like they know everything about the competition, how much they treat, what their price is, what they actually do on the house, and not only like what customers tell them, but they'll go do research to understand what's going on. And so that's powerful because again, everyone's lying to you until they trust you, right?
Yeah.
And what's one of the ways to garner trust? Well, if they're going to trust their bug guy, you need to be a competent professional, and you need to have good character deep down. And so your competency, you're just demonstrating that by saying like, okay, yeah, they do this, this, and this. And if you're like anything like the 20 other people that signed up this week from that, you switched over from that company, I think you're really gonna like this.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. So like because I only knocked like 1.5 cities all summer. So I would just go through like neighborhood, just run through loops. So most of the people that I would pitch, I could show them my map. And it's like, just so you know, like I'm not just BSing you. These are all the people that I take care of. And I had like a lot of stars that were customers. So that was helpful. But then I would show, okay, so they do this and this. They actually do this, this, and this, and this on top of that. So the reason everyone's been switching is because I do 2 things different. I don't do that. I do this, and this is the reason why. That's why it's important to you.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, if he has all these people, I just am building credibility for myself, essentially.
Yeah.
And then I would point out very specific issues, and then everyone gets Black Widows in the garage, every single house, right?
Dude, remember the day that dawned on us that like everyone had Black Widows? We're like...
Dude, it was like a plague out there.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous.
Real. But the thing is, like, that's not just unique to one city or whatever. It's like there's always an issue like that in every place that you sell.
What it is the question, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so as a side note, I think a lot of people put too much stock in demonstrating the social proof, where in reality...
Wait, what do you mean with that?
Meaning, like, showing how many people you treat is only going to improve your odds of selling that person if you've already gained their trust by that point. So it just adds to it. It's not like the end all be all. But a lot of reps will think it's kind of the end all, like be all of, okay,
interesting.
You've been, like, you show me people we're treating. But in reality, the reason why someone's going to trust you, it's literally because you're a competent service professional who knows what you're talking about, and because you're showing that you care. And those are the 2 things that matter the most. And if you can do those 2 things, then everything else will build on that. So, like, in order for someone to make a buying decision, they have to know that the service is really good. They have to trust you as the person telling them the information. Yeah. And then they have to trust that we're going to deliver as a company. And so what you do in the sale is just solidifying those 3 pillars.
Wow.
But the biggest thing you're doing at the beginning, and then you have these sections of the sale, right? So like the intro in your first 4 to 7 seconds, you're gaining people's trust because you're coming across as like friendly, charismatic, and easy to talk to.
Yeah.
And you do that through your tonalities, but also just because you have this natural charisma. But then like once you're like 7 to 10 seconds in and they actually start trusting you already, like everything else you do just kind of just bolsters up like your, what you did to gain trust in those first 4 to 7 seconds.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is cool. That's super cool. I've noticed the way that you deposit yourself in those first 4 to 7 seconds makes a huge difference on how many questions that you can ask to information gather to.
Yeah, dude.
Because like if I had a really, really good impression, if I just nailed my intro, now all of a sudden they will like get statements out, right? They will tell me how much they're charging, how often they're charging. Yeah. I know exactly what they're doing rather than like them questioning what they're doing. Yep. Because then I know for certainty, and then I can like use that as ammo to counter in the future.
Yeah, that's huge.
Through the rest of my pitch.
And that's actually the biggest reason why it's important to gain trust in the first 4 to 7 seconds, is because now if you're going to close at a high level, you need to know certain things about what's going on in that person's bug situation or whatever you're selling, right?
Yeah.
And nobody's going to answer questions for you if they don't trust you.
Yeah.
At least a little bit. But there's things you can do to make that easier. So you can say like, well, let me just ask you a question. Did you do that much, like the asking permission to ask a question?
Yeah. Yeah.
This one's crazy to me too, as a tactic of like someone comes out hot in the doors. You're like, hey, man, no worries. I know you might not be interested, but can I just ask you a question real fast? And they're like, yeah, sure. What's up? Yeah. It's like you just ask permission.
And it's like a different person in response to
completely different person. Yeah.
It's like weird, to be honest.
Hey, I'm so sorry about you. Let me just ask you a question real fast and I'll get out of your hair.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure. What's up? What can I help you with? I'm like,
interesting.
So I've been doing this. Do you know anybody that has been complaining about like the mice or the ants on the neighborhood Facebook page? And like, oh, you're the bug guy. I'm like, yeah, I'm so sorry to bug you. What was your name, by the way? Like, and then if they're actually in rapport with you, they'll tell you. Yeah. And now you're just back into the sale.
Yeah. Yeah, you're in, huh? Mm-hmm. That's kind of sweet.
Anyway,
that's cool.
Any other things you did that, like, I don't know, just like tactics that you use that worked well for you?
I found this to be interesting. I never talk bad about competitors.
Yes,
with
dude,
customers.
that's huge.
I found a lot of competitors that I would hear through the grapevine that would always talk bad about me or other competitors. And that was a huge differentiator between like, because I wasn't the only one that was re-knocking regularly.
Sure.
You know, and like those people that left a bad impression just because they were talking trash, I was different than them because I didn't talk trash about somebody else.
Right.
And I had tons to say, like in certain like settings.
If anything, you have more to say.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the mark of like being of the number one, insert whatever, like being the best. Is like the best doesn't talk bad about other people.
Yes. Yeah.
And so the moment you start trashing like competition, like psychologically, customers thinking like, oh, they must not be the best then, because like number one doesn't ever talk bad about anyone below them. It's
funny. There was I remember a specific experience to where there was a guy that he moved from like Washington, and he moved into a really nice house. And there was a direct competitor, you know who I'm talking about, who had got his phone number and he was texting him. And he called me and I closed him over the phone, and I was way more expensive. We're obviously a much better service, but he kept texting this guy, and I ended up showing up at the house because I was like talking to his neighbors at the same time our tech showed up. And the guy came out and he's like, hey, just so you know, I want to tell you this. He's like, I've been texting this guy from a different company and he does not have anything good to say about you. And he showed me the texts, and it was like just grill. And all of it was dishonest, mostly about like what we do, what we use, how much, whatever. And I'm like, I'm like, what did I say? I'm like, I mean, they're a great company. I don't have anything wrong to say about them. I just think that you're going to be thrilled with us, and I don't even have anything else to say because like what we do is going to speak for itself. And he's like, I appreciate that. I just really hate that people have negative things to say, especially when they don't know all the facts of the story. And I'm like, that is so cool, because like that is what won his trust over too. Because I mean, I definitely like had things on the tip of my tongue that I wanted to say, but I put a sock in it because I knew that was the best thing for the setting. And then all of a sudden, like he referred 3 more neighbors, and 3 more neighbors signed up. And I'm like, dang, well, that was easy. So easy. And it's kind of cool just to see that. That's bite the tongue on a little negativity.
Well, I mean, it plays into this point too of like, if you're really trying to serve a customer at the highest level and be the person that, you know, gives them the best service, then like, it's really counterproductive actually just to like talk trash on competition. And even when you're selling too, so like, you know, who are you with? And they say, I'm with whoever, right? Eco, whatever. You're like, okay, I don't have anything bad to say about them, but have you been around when they've sprayed before? It's kind of what you do. And then most sales reps will be like, oh yeah, they kind of just spray the inside, spray the outside, right? But if you actually know, you're like, so do you watch them? Like, do you have them do anything special on top of like the normal service? No, I just don't really know what to do. Okay, so the normal service with them is they do this, 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 and this. Actually, and that'll resonate with them because they're still not telling you the truth. The customers, but they do know that that's what they're getting as a service if they've ever watched it before. So then when you say, now the difference between us is like we do, on top of all of those basic things, we do this, then this, then this, then this, then this. We're just very different. So like, what's the square footage here? I can kind of show you what it looks like. And now you're like, but you didn't have to talk bad about anybody.
Interesting. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you make it very clear, but you don't have to throw anybody under the bus.
No, not at all. I mean, and like you said, we have plenty to say, but
no good in saying it, essentially.
Dude, that's what I realized. That's been a big insight for me this year. Is like no one is actually talking crap. Everyone's talking crap about the first place. First place just doesn't care to talk crap about anybody below them.
Yeah. You can still use that though. I think what I found is that like you can still use like there are plenty of things wrong with a lot of competitors. And I mean, I'm sure they say the same thing about us, but you can still. And
there's actually things wrong with us too. It's not reality better, but
I would say though that like you can still share that with customers if you do it right, but you just need to be out of the negative notion.
So
where like I would
100%, dude.
All the time in my pitch, I would like if you had a certain company XYZ, I would say they're not a bad company by any means. They're just a very basic company, and I'm going to be more of a premium service. And this is what that means. They do the inside, the outside. That's going to be about it. With me, I'm more expanded. I do this, and this as like an additional service. The return side to that is that you're not going to have this issue. And all of a sudden they're like, oh shoot,
what that means for you.
I'm more expensive, and you probably already knew that with seeing how much I do, but at the end of the day, it's going to be well worth your time. So now they see, oh, he does more, he's not basic, and he's more expensive, but I'll get what I pay for.
And right there, most people were saying, like, how much does it cost?
It's not.
They're like asking you the question.
Exactly.
Of you saying now, like, you know, getting into pricing was a square footage of your home.
Yeah.
But you've just told them all of that. from the beginning.
And then you pull that arrow out of their quiver with the price thing later too, which is kind of sweet.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I just pay way less, so I'm just going to settle with who I have. But I told you earlier that you're not going to be able to use that objection.
Yeah, and it should be 8 Mile, which is sick. There was one thing I wanted to point out that you do really well there, which was, what was it? So a couple of things. People don't. I'll say this: when people switch from their competitor, if you make it easy for them to switch, then they'll pretty much always, you can like get the sale.
Yeah.
So if you just make it, and I talked to a guy this week who he would even like draft up like templates of follow-up emails and stuff, and it was really interesting for me to see how prepared he was, knowing what the competition was, and then he would draft up these like comparison and contrast, pros and cons of like going with us versus staying with their competitor. And when you make it so compelling for people to switch over, and then you make it actually just really easy, or that it feels easy to them to get out of their whatever, like, call their guy or change the contract, then that's what you're really trying to do, is just make it seamless, simple, and people will pay way more with us if you do that. Yeah. I don't know what I'm even saying there, dude. I lost my train.
No, I know what you mean. I mean, I did feel like I found a lot of hesitancy with people when they were under the impression that it was a lot of work to switch. Yeah. Because they're like, I just don't want to go through the work. I'm like, listen, it's as simple as this. All you got to do, I mean, how long have you been with them? Over a year? Okay, so your cancellation is terminated. You don't have to pay anything. All you need to do is just send them an email or call them, and that's it. Then you can start with me. I'll have them out here tomorrow. Yep. And it's like, oh, shoot. Like, seriously, really? It's that easy? I'm like, yeah, you should have listened when I said that.
It's really easy. Yeah. Or, if you... I would have people do this all the time and be like, can you get your, do you have your email on you? And they're like, yeah, it's on my phone. Like, can you pull up your last service with them? And by you being and I can show like what, if you're out of an agreement or not. And they'll be like, oh yeah, well, and they pull it up. But because you're controlling the interaction, where like you're kind of telling them what to do in a sense. Yeah. And then everything they do that you tell them to do is just one step closer to them saying yes. Which is also why control questions are so powerful on the doors. And it's really also why the more you can talk to the same people and show that you're actually the expert compared to everybody else, the more you will sell.
Interesting.
Anyway.
That's the truth.
Any other tactics or things that you did this year that like you could pinpoint and say like, that helped me so well?
This one's kind of like, it should paint its own picture, but like just being hydrated. Like,
interesting.
Before, like previous summers, that was like a neglection for me because there's a hard line between drinking enough water and peeing every 15 minutes. You know what I mean? So I just didn't care about the second aspect of that, because if I don't have water in my system, I don't have my cognitive function. And if I don't have my cognitive function, I sound like an idiot. And then the ripple effect to that is I don't have like the impression that I did before. Yeah. So I mean, it is what it is. You go to the bathroom every once in a while.
You'll find a way to
you
make that
figure it out. Yeah. Yep. Or you just end up moving faster, so you sweat more, and then you don't have to go to the bathroom all the time. So.
Yeah, dude. Well, and again, going back to this is what a lot of the sales reps would ask me is like, don't you ever have to like take a break or like use the bathroom during the day? It's like, I mean, I do, but the difference between you and me is like you use that as an excuse, and like that doesn't actually.
Yes, or your bathroom break is 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah,
or bathroom break is an hour and a half.
Yeah, or I realize that I can control even like I can put myself in a situation to make it so that that's just never an issue for me. So whereas most people, they're trying to use that as like an excuse to not knock as many doors, or like, oh, I'm really tired. It's like, okay, what's the thing I can use to get out of this? Well, I have to go to the bathroom. Yeah.
I mean, I'm guilty of that too. I think I've definitely done that. I've seen that happen with myself, and it's easy to do until you catch it, and then it's easy to stop.
Yeah. And you realize how counterproductive it is to your goals. You're like, no, I mean, yeah. Again, going back to what we talked about last episode, where like it takes what it takes, and there's just some times where like you have to say, I'm not going to leave until I have X amount of sales today. So,
yeah, that's cool.
I'll go take a break once we do that.
Yes. Yeah. Just figure it out, make it happen.
And doing that as a group too. And you say like, we'll take a break like when our team has this many. That's something I learned that we would do a lot in Kansas City. Was most of the other teams would they would like they were really hardcore about like working the hours, which I was as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference was I cared way more about sales than I did about like the schedule. So
yes,
what we would do is say like, if we get this many sales before dark, then we'll do something like we'll go to Sonic on the way home or something like that. So everyone was like, okay, if we can like just close out the day at like 7, then we can get home by like 8 or 9, and we can actually rest for tomorrow, and then tomorrow we'll kill it even more.
Yeah.
So we got into this and we'll sell more because we're actually working towards something rather than like, you know, just like everybody kind of knocking till the end of the night and like waiting things out. So then what would happen is like I would put an incentive on the line, and that incentive would be to get off the doors early. And then the next day I would do another incentive that was capitalized on resting even further. So we were knocking in the morning afternoon schedule. And so I would say, all right, if we get this many morning sales as a team, we'll take lunch early. So now you have this situation where like everyone was super well rested the night before.
Yeah.
And then we're taking lunch early because we just crush it in the morning, selling more than everyone else because they're just like dragging their feet and really tired, right? And then we get back on the doors fresh, and then we just freaking crush it the next night. And that would happen day after day after day after day. So whereas most teams would peter out and start selling less in August, our team always sold more in August, because you're just trying to like hack the salesman's mind to like, okay, what do they actually want? Well, everyone feels like they're tired, or they think they are. So they want to rest. So you give them an incentive to like be able to rest a little bit more or whatever, or at least you eliminate that excuse.
That's cool.
Anyway,
that's super
Anything
cool.
else you did that like helped? Hydration?
That's a little thing, but that's a huge thing. So
I think that's really cool to note though. And even as you're like coaching your sales reps for this next summer, to be like, okay, these things are important.
Yeah. I would say, like, if I boil it down to a point, I would say like the biggest thing that helped me from a mental perspective was focusing my time with people that were willing to talk to me, because those are the people that were willing to buy from me.
That's so big.
And
it's huge.
like that helps me physically just to like retain energy and then put it into use when it's actually going to be like effective. And 2, like there's so much emotional preservation in that too.
Yeah.
Because when you push with people that are not interested in even talking to you, like you feel like crap.
It's really draining.
That sucks. Yeah. Because it's like, man, like everyone hates me. I already knew that, but this guy just solidified that idea because he's being you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you can just push in place where it counts, it's so much more rewarding. Which is really cool.
Big, dude. And then what you're trying to work on is like, how can I increase my skill set to close more of those people that are actually talking to me?
Yes. Yeah. With that was cool. Was being able to just slowly introduce more and more and more closes when I got really comfortable with. The more comfortable I got with people, which happened when I started talking to people that I was more comfortable with. Coincidence? I don't think so.
How that happens.
All of a sudden, I just got into a habit of closing more frequently, more often, and either soft or hard. It didn't make a difference.
Closing more times with each person.
Yes, and being very clear that my intention with them is to earn their business.
Right.
And sometimes
you're not beating around the bush.
Yeah, I'm like, hey,
give you information.
I'm really glad that I got to visit with you, but I just want you to know for certainty that like I do this, and I want you to be a part of this before I leave. But I also am really enjoying talking with you, and this has been great. So that was cool, because like even sometimes in my introduction, I'm like, hey, I'm Cole. I manage Moxie. I would love to earn your business. I do bugs for all the neighbors. Who do you guys have coming out? Because then in my intro, I'm like, hey,
right from the get-go,
trying to sign you up. Yep. But who do you guys have? What's your objection so that I can overcome it?
Yeah. How do you feel about that? Tell me your first objection so I can overcome it.
Yeah. Make it easy, please.
Did you change anything in the back half of the sale? You know, I'm so big on this, so based on how you answer this will be really interesting.
I close most of my deals in the front half of the sale.
Bro, so I have an observation then.
Okay.
Your goals are not nearly big enough.
Correct.
Because if they were bigger, you would have more urgency to close more on the back half of the sale.
Yes.
And so you're leaving a lot on the table.
Yes.
Okay. That's really good to know. But that's also this is what I would tell everyone. It's like if you're closing the majority of your deals right after price, then you're leaving at least 50% of your current production on the table every time. every year that you keep doing
I believe that.
So if you don't actually focus on the back half of the sale ever, or get better at it, or like stick in it with the people that are actually willing to talk to you, like you will be able to actually close those people. So what you should be doing is closing like 4 to 6 a day, easy ones. And then from 4 to 6 a day, being able to close, that's just the front half of the sale. So then if you can close, between 6 to 10 there'll be medium difficulty, where maybe you have to keep looping 1 or 2 times. But then like from 10 to 15, you could close 5 more people a day if you stick in the back half of the sales script for the rest of the sale. So you can go from, and that resonates though, right? Because like that's what basically you're closing, like 6 to 8 a day.
Yeah.
So like you're already getting all the easy ones, and well, the ones that just are easy to close. Yeah. Then really you have like this huge gap between 8 to 15 that you could still be closing.
It's funny. Like looking back, I know who those people are. Those are the people that are asking buying questions, but ended up wanting to think about it, wanted me to give them a card, and then I didn't follow up or whatever. And I know because they're asking buying questions, I know that there's interest, and it was something that I needed to just pursue, and I would have closed. Yep. So yeah, that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good note for like all experienced guys. I think most experienced guys are leaving about 50% of their revenue on the table in addition to what they're already doing.
Interesting. I would say you're right with my case. Can't speak for anyone
else. I know
that's
how it was for me too. I remember the first time I started actually using the back half of the sale, it's like someone told me no. I can still picture the guy I was talking to in where were we at? It was like up in Van Alstyne or something, like close to Melissa and Anna, like up north. Yeah. And I knocked the door and the guy's like, so I get to price with him. He's like, I think we're just gonna think about it. And I'm like, all right. And I just like left. No, I know how to close those now. Yeah. But it was a crazy thing because like the old version of me as a sales rep just didn't ever try with those because I didn't know what to do next. But from the time that I went from like doubling my best summer day for day, I had gained this new skill set of like this kind of the back half of the sale is what we refer to it as. And I just remember thinking in my head like, no, Hayden, you know how to close this one. And it was just like the craziest thing, like, oh shoot, I do actually. So like then the next guy I talked to, I did that and I looped in the back half and just followed kind of the script that I had come up with, and it was like so easy to close them.
Interesting.
But it felt easy the whole time, even though they were like, yeah, we're just not ready. We got to think about it. Oh yeah, like I got to talk with my wife. Oh, like come back later. And you just keep going and keep going. And then they close like 5 minutes later.
What the heck?
And then now you've got more momentum. But that was like, okay, cool. I've got 5 of these that I'm probably going to have today. And 4 more that are probably going to be medium difficulty. Yeah. And then 6 for sure that like if I'm on my game, I'll be able to close easy.
Yeah. That's when the numbers start racking up. What Jordan Belfort is like, that's when you roll up your sleeves and earn your paycheck. Yep.
That's the difference between guys that make 6 figures and guys that make like 3, 4, 5x of that.
A lot. Yeah. Crazy.
All right, dude. This has been really good. Cool. So actually I have 2 more questions for you. Okay. So you just made $160,000 this year. Yeah. Without managing a team, your own personal sales is all. What was the most difficult thing you had to overcome in order to make 6 figures and a half?
The most difficult thing I had to overcome, complacency, I think, in every aspect of my life. Whether that's like being comfortable in the morning, staying in bed for another 30 minutes, being comfortable like eating shiz that I know I shouldn't be eating, you know what I mean? Like being comfortable cutting my workout short, being comfortable leaving at 8 versus 9 when I'm knocking on the doors. The complacency aspect was something that I was able to slowly dissolve over my summer, and that was a huge
That's
thing
cool, dude.
That was cool.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it too. Dissolve your complacency. It's like slowly goes away over time.
It's easy to do. It just takes time. Yeah, and it just takes the consistent effort of like pinpointing one thing at a time that you want to work on, and then it's easy. You just do it. So I would say that was the biggest thing.
Okay. For me. And then now, so having made, you made $150,000, 160 this summer in 4 months, which is just crazy. Yeah. What are you going to do next? Go to Disneyland?
That's a great question. I'm going to go to Disneyland.
No. What advice would you give to someone who wants to do that in their early 20s? Aside from work with us, because we're hiring.
What I would say is that like my temptation is to start tomorrow, and I would start today. I would just find something and pursue it and just go after it versus like wait for tomorrow. Because if you wait for tomorrow, then something else is going to come up and you'll end up putting it off 2 more days and 3 more days. And then you're going to be 5 years later down the road and you're not going to start. You haven't started yet.
You know what they say? The best time to plant a tree was 2 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree
is now.
Right now. Yeah. Today.
So I would say that find an avenue like ours. Maybe it is ours and just find interest and pursue it. Just don't wait.
How were you able to do that because of door-to-door sales and Moxie versus like other things?
Ooh, like just start now, pursue it.
Well, what made it so that you were able to do that here versus like, you know, somewhere else or like in any other vehicle that's not really possible to do that?
Oh, good question. So, I mean, this vehicle specifically, I interviewed with multiple different companies before I chose to do this. And it's everything aside from the money that makes it really easy to just move forward and pursue this.
Dang.
So like being principle centered, I work with people that I can trust no matter what.
Yeah.
And I don't have to question that ever.
Yeah.
Which makes me sleep really well at night, knowing that who I work with are people that have my back.
Do people underestimate the power of like having your a shared vision and values with the people that you work with and with the company as a whole?
Yeah. It's so cool. Well, it's terrifying to work in an environment that is different than that because there's so many different variables that you can't depend on.
Right.
And like ultimately it's like a you game, but I have so many people that I can depend on. And that just gives me like a massive strength to a backbone to be able to like plant my feet and move forward here, which is sweet.
Dude, that's big.
So finding people that are like-minded and principle centered,
aligned,
kind of cool.
That's great, man. Well, this has been awesome. We should do this again soon.
Okay, deal.
Convinced me. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
I'll see you.
Too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy.